The fact of the matter is that Joe Biden is quite vulnerable in 2024, which means the Republican side of the aisle is going to fill up quite quickly. And because Joe Biden is an incompetent president, because Joe Biden has no personal magnetism or charisma, because Joe Biden is effectively just a dead body the Democrats have stapled to some sort of dolly and are wheeling around upright, trying to make sure that the nominee is not Kamala Harris, this means that there are a lot of Republicans who are going to jump in the water. So the other day, Nikki Haley, former South Carolina governor and former Trump ambassador to the United Nations, she launched her own 2024 campaign. This makes her the first official candidate outside of Donald Trump on the right side of the aisle. That pool, as I say, is going to fill up very quickly. Here is a bit of the ad that she put out launching her campaign.
I was the proud daughter of Indian immigrants. Not black, not white. I was different. But my mom would always say, your job is not to focus on the differences, but the similarities. And my parents reminded me and my siblings every day how blessed we were to live in America. Some look at our past as evidence that America's founding principles are bad. They say the promise of freedom is just made up. Some think our ideas are not just wrong, but racist and evil. Nothing could be further from the truth. The socialist left sees an opportunity to rewrite history. China and Russia are on the march. They all think we can be bullied, kicked around. You should know this about me. I don't put up with bullies. I'm Nikki Haley, and I'm running for president.
So by polling data, Nikki Haley is charting in the low double digits, which is not a bad place to start. Now, again, she's the only other candidate other than Trump who's actively declared at this point. There's widespread expectation that the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, is probably going to run for president. He has a giant war chest that he has amassed for his last gubernatorial run. A lot of that money was left over. He also has very high popularity ratings inside the Republican Party. What the polls show right now is that theoretically, Nikki Haley could play a spoiler role in a three-way race between Trump and DeSantis, that she could actually deprive more votes from DeSantis than she takes from Trump, and in the process, elevate Trump to the nomination. But let's just analyze her candidacy on sort of its own merits. So here are the good things about Nikki Haley's candidacy. Obviously, she is articulate. She's very photogenic. Nikki Haley did an excellent job as UN ambassador. That also happens to be like the world's best job. Being ambassador to the UN is great. It really is. You just go into a place where everyone is garbage and you call them garbage. It is the world's best job in government. You are faced with dictators and you say you're a dictator and a bad person. It's a great, great job. She was a good, fairly popular governor of South Carolina. She's run into some issues with her base. She got crossways of the base for taking a sort of moderate line with regard to the removal of the Confederate flag from the South Carolina state capitol. And it was placed in a museum instead, for example. She also got afoul of the base after January 6th when she took a very harsh line against Donald Trump post-January 6th and then seemed to sort of reverse herself a little bit. Also, obviously, one of the elephants in the room with regard to her candidacy is that she had said she would not run if Trump would run, and obviously she's reversed herself on that. Now, I don't take any of those sorts of promises seriously. When people say, I won't run if X runs, or I'm not going to run, or I promise on that, who cares? I don't care. The real question is, would she make a good president? And the answer is Nikki Haley would, in fact, make a good president. The drawbacks of her candidacy, sort of broadly speaking, are that Americans tend to not be as focused on foreign policy as they are on domestic policy. So you would assume that she's going to have to focus a lot on her tenure as the South Carolina governor, as opposed to her tenure at the UN. Because when it comes to foreign policy, like probably Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, is going to run for president. Americans don't care that much about foreign policy until it's immediate. And so running as a foreign policy guru really doesn't do you a hell of a lot of good. Americans right now are particularly focused on domestic policy. That's going to be difficult for her to sort of outflank people like Ron DeSantis on those issues, or say Brian Kemp if he decides to run for president from Maryland, or Glenn Youngkin if he decides to run for president from Virginia. She's also she has to run this sort of gauntlet because she was a member of the Trump administration. The left is going to tie her to Trump. And because she left the Trump administration early and has said some things critical of Trump, some on the right who really like Trump are angry at Nikki Haley. This makes her candidacy complicated. But she, again, is a very talented politician. The thing that I find fascinating about her announcement of her run is the way the left has reacted. And it really demonstrates how much the left loves and wants Trump. They really do. So imagine for a second that you really don't want Trump to be the guy, right? Let's say you're on the left and supposedly Trump is Hitler, right? Trump, the only thing that separates them is the little mustache. You're on the left and you're one of these people who believes that Trump is essentially a Nazi who's putting America in danger of authoritarianism. So anybody who declares against Trump, you should immediately be like, this person will be great. This person will be like, man, I would rather have Nikki Haley as the nominee than Donald Trump. If you're on the left and this is your perspective, wouldn't you think that's the case? Instead, the media immediately leapt to attack Nikki Haley with extraordinary alacrity. Like, they're really angry at Nikki Haley for running because they kind of want Trump to be the nominee. Number one, he's ratings. I mean, that dude is absolute ratings gold for a lot of these networks. And two, they think that he's much more beatable than some of the other candidates on the right side of the aisle. Well, Nikki Haley's declaration that she's jumping into the race is really the big leadoff to the presidential campaign. And if the prospect of 2 years makes you want to die a little bit on the inside, well, while you're thinking about that, probably you should get some life insurance. This is where Policy Genius comes in. A good life insurance plan can give you peace of mind that if something should happen to you, your family will have a safety net to cover mortgage payments, college costs, or other expenses so they can get back on their feet and focus on what's most important. The simple fact of the matter is, if you're a responsible human being, you need life insurance, and Policy Genius makes it super easy to compare life insurance quotes from top companies and find your lowest price. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $39 per month for $2 million in coverage. Some options offer coverage in as little as a week and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius's licensed agents can help you find coverage options in as little as a week. They work for you, not the insurance companies, which means they don't have an incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. There are no added fees. Your personal information remains private. Your loved ones deserve that financial safety net, and you deserve a smarter way to find and buy it. Head on over to policygenius.com/Shapiro or click the link in the description. Get your free life insurance quotes. See how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Shapiro. And one thing that we know about Nikki Haley is that she knows how to face down actual emergencies. She's the governor of a state that experienced some while she was actually governor of the state. But how will you face down the latest emergency? Let's say that you're living in a town and suddenly Pete Buttigieg botches his job. A train goes off the rails and now they have to blow up a train filled with toxic chemicals. How are you going to get your medication? This is something that you might want to think about, because if you think about it now, you won't have to later. And this is where Jace Medical comes in. The FDA actually just declared a global shortage of certain medications and warned that critical antibiotics are now in extreme short supply. So do yourself and your family a favor. Get the Jace case right now. It's a pack of 5 prescription antibiotics you should have on hand at all times for common emergencies. Visit jacemedical.com. Take a few minutes to fill out their online form. Your information will be reviewed by a board-certified physician. Your medication will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. Enter code Ben at checkout for a discount on your order. That's JASEmedical.com, promo code Ben. Again, it's the smart thing to do. Protect your family the easy way. Go to jacemedical.com, promo code Ben. So their immediate reaction to Nikki Haley is to attack her in some of the dumbest ways I've ever seen. So there was an article in Politico that suggested that Nikki Haley had on a government state form, like here she is touting her diversity as an Indian American woman. And on her forms, early government forms, she listed herself as Caucasian. Yes, because there was no actual category for Southeast Asian or South Asian, rather. There was no actual category on that on the forms. And so Indian Americans had to choose between black and white. And so she chose white. Okay, but Politico put like 5 reporters on that story. And then there was the meme that was going around the other day that Nikki Haley she says America's not racist. Well, why she use the name Nikki? After all, her full name is more Indian sounding. Her middle name is Nikki, and she's been going by Nikki like her entire life. That is not unusual. And then, of course, you have Joy Reid, one of our nation's most unintelligent commentators, suggesting that the thing about Nikki Haley is that she's just a Trumpy. She's Trump's person, which is weird since she's now running against him.
Stuart, she's tried to inoculate herself by saying, no, I'm not one of the bad ones. I hate the 1619 Project just as much as you do. And, she's had this sort of, she talks about her Indian American heritage, but she focuses not on her Sikh background, but on her conversion to Christianity. Like, she's definitely tried to fit in. But I just want to put up the 2016 cast of characters that ran against Trump. They all said Trump was no good. Trump was an anathema to conservatism. Trump wasn't a real conservative. Trump wasn't a real Republican. Trump was disgusting. Trump was misogynistic. And then they all took the knee. So did Nikki Haley, Stuart. In the end, everything she tries to say about being an alternative to Trump, no, she's not. She's Trump's person.
She's Trump's person, guys, which is weird since she's now running again. But again, everyone must be lumped in with Trump. So you can say that they're bad. Joy would love nothing better than for Donald Trump to be the nominee. Whoopi Goldberg doing the same thing. Says Nikki Haley has lost her mind for even running. Has she, though? I mean, I got to say that the people you guys are talking about running on your side of the aisle, if Joe Biden should plot, are people like Kamala Harris, the world's most untalented person. Like there's never... Karine Jean-Pierre is only the world's most untalented press secretary. Kamala Harris is the world's most untalented human. Like of all the humans on earth, she has the least talent. It's like God sucked every element of talent out of her before he created her in a laboratory. In any case, here's Whoopi Goldberg saying that Nikki Haley is a crazy person, says Whoopi Goldberg, a person who has literally said that everyone in America is racist and everyone in human history might be racist except for Hitler, who is not racist because Jews are white. Here's Whoopi Goldberg, a genius.
So, Nikki, You know, since you have been asleep all this time and you just woke up, you're just finding out that there are things about our country that are not perfect. And for us to pretend that it is and that nothing happened is ridiculous. So you're not saying anything new. And you, of all people, should know better, because you used to actually have some sanity and knew right from wrong.
Yes.
And then you lost your mind and went in some new direction.
Oh, you used to have sanity and knew. Why is it that the minute that any Republican declares for president, this is when they lose their mind? They did the same routine with John McCain, by the way. They loved John McCain precisely until the point he won the Republican nomination, at which point John McCain became a rabid right-winger in the mold of George W. Bush, right? This is the way that they always work. Listening to Whoopi Goldberg declaim on politics is just an amazing experience. It's almost an out-of-body experience watching someone this stupid talk about politics. This is a person that presumably some people watch on The View. And this is a person who literally said yesterday that she can't tell the difference between Rick Scott and Tim Scott. There are some differences, Whoopi.
We deserve to have two strong parties. This is a massive step up.
We do deserve to have two strong parties. So, you know, Tim Scott, Black Tim Scott, right? Because there are two Scotts, and I don't know how to differentiate them without a picture. Yeah. So
Rick Scott and Tim Scott?
Rick Scott and Tim Scott.
Right.
Tim Scott is black, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, wow. Nailed it, Whoopi. Nailed it. Tim Scott, speaking of, is another person who may be running for president as well. Now, the great fear for people who don't actually like Donald Trump the best among all the nominees is that you get a repeat of 2016, in which there are so many Republican candidates in the pool that it basically fragments the field, and Donald Trump runs the gauntlet with like 20-25% support. That could theoretically happen, right? Tim Scott is also a good candidate. He also wants to run for president. Tim Scott actually is surprisingly not all that young. Tim Scott is 57 years old. Actually, Nikki Haley is only 51. But Tim Scott wants to run, presumably. You got Ron DeSantis wants to run. Glenn Youngkin might want to run. Brian Kemp wants to run. There's been talk about Kristen Sununu from New Hampshire running. You got Larry Hogan from Maryland talking about running. So you could have a very full stage once again. And if Donald Trump's the most prominent person on that stage and the rest of the field doesn't consolidate, that does in fact put him, statistically speaking, in the driver's seat. Now, I think that the field is going to clear a little bit, but you know, the question is going to be how fast. Meanwhile, Democrats are going to do their best to rip down everybody who is not Donald Trump. Because let's just face it, this is Democrat strategy. They have the same strategy in 2024 that they had in 2016, which is they think that Donald Trump is the most beatable. Now, they may get their wish and then find that their wish has been thwarted by the monkey's paw, that Donald Trump gets the nomination, then he wins. That is certainly quite possible. However, if you're just looking at how the media are treating the possible alternatives to Donald Trump, it's very obvious that they prefer Donald Trump to the alternatives because they think that this will allow them a better shot at victory. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be talking with Marissa Streit over at Prager University about the predations of social media and how it's cracking down on conservatism. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click the link in the description and join us.